Alright friends, welcome to the video. Let's begin the video by previewing the final version of our project so we can get the clear idea of what we are going to build today. So we are going to create this parallax effect where all the elements on the screen are scrolling with the different speed. Something like this. I have created similar effect on one of my previous video, that was scroll animation in React using framer motion. However, in that tutorial, this effect was only the part of an animation. So in this video, I want to only focus on creating this parallax effect, and we will build this from scratch using React, framer motion, Tailwind and Typescript. So let's do it. Here we are in VS Code editor where I already set up the React project. I also added the Tailwind to our project. I also extended these colors and added this drop shadow style to our Tailwind system, which I will be using little bit later in our video. If you are someone who don't like to use Tailwind, that's fine. Just use these style and colors using CSS. However, if you want to learn how I did this, I also have a video about how to add a custom style to Tailwind. Please go and check that. Saying that, let's go back to this parallax.tsx file, and this will be the starting point of our project. So let's start by removing this line of code that we don't need it, and this div can be the main container, so leave it like that. Here I want another div and I want to provide some style to it, so let's say class name, and I want it to be full screen height, so HDVH and width of full, and I want to provide a background color of reddish that we added just before. This is coming from Tailwind. Okay, all right, then I want here it to be a grid and place item center. Okay, so that anything between this div be center position. And now I want to say here a div that has a div and that has an image inside it. I want another heading tag here, and this heading tag say Navok code, that is my channel name, and I want to add another paragraph tag over here, and it say full stack developer, or let's just say parallax project, something like that, and let's expand it and save it. I already added the images that we are going to use on this project under this public folder, so you add your images on this public folder. Now I can use that image over here. I want to use this Nova code logo image over here and remove this alt actually. All right, now let's add some style to this div. Let's say class name, size 52, padding 10, and rounded full, overflow hidden, background of light, and let's give some margin bottom, so margin bottom 2. Okay, after that I want to add some style to this image also. Let's say class name, and I want to say height of full, width of full, and object cover. That's it for that image also. Now let's make these heading and paragraph center, so let's say class name text center, and let's say text light. Now let's style this heading tag, so class name, and I want it to be bold and size of 3XL. Now let's style this paragraph, and let's say this is a text size of LG. I think that's all we need here. Let's save it and let's go and check this on our Chrome browser. So this is what we have so far. I think if I add some shadow to this div container, it will look nicer. So let's do that before we continue. So on this div, we want to apply this dark shadow which I have created and added to the Tailwind system. So let's go to this parallax.tsx and add this class over here on this div. So I can say drop shadow and dark shadow. Okay, let's save it and let's check. This looks much better. Now back to the VS Code. We want to continue with adding other images that are required for this parallax effect. So let's add a div over here and add class name to it. The first style I want to provide here is height of 300 dvh and position relative. Now the idea is we want to add all of our images inside this div and give it a different absolute position so that when we scroll, our images can appear from all sides. We also provided little larger height for this div because we need some space for the scrolling. Okay, and if you notice, we have provided the specific height for this div 300 dvh and this div 100 dvh over here, right? That means this div will have in total 400 dvh of height, and this specific height for this div container will be very important and useful later for determining the scroll position when implementing our scroll animation. Okay, now here we will add all of our images, but all of our images has similar kind of style, so the best approach will be creating its own component and using a map loop to add those images. Okay, so let's create our component. To create a component, let's first create a folder inside this source folder and let's name it components, and inside this component folder let me create a file name floating images.tsx. okay, now let's create a function for this component with the name floating images, and here I want to return a div. I need another div over here with the image tag in it, and I don't need this alt, so let's remove it. Over here I need another div and p tag inside it, and now I want to pass caption for the image over here, and for this image source I want to pass image path, and I will get this image path and caption from the props of this component. So here I can say image path and caption, and this will be the type of floating images props. Okay, and if you are not using TypeScript, you don't have to do this. This is just the TypeScript thing. Okay, now we have to define our type. Let's define it. Type floating image props, and this will be equals to image path, and this will be string type, and I need a caption that will also be string type. Now let's style this div. Here I can say class name, and let me give this the size of 44 and rounded XL, overflow hidden, and drop shadow dark shadow, right? Okay, now let's style this image. So let's say class name, and I want it to be width full, a height of full, and then object cover here. All right, now let's style our main container over here. Let's say class name, and here I want it to be a grid so that I can add a gap between image and caption like this. And let's give it a text of LG size and text light color. Okay, and another thing I want to add here is position absolute. So let's save it. Before I start using this component, I want to add two more props to this component. One is class name, so let's add it over here, class name, and this will be string type, and the other one is size. So let's say this will be type small or medium or large. Okay, now we have to get that class name and size over here, and size, something like that. Now I will use this class name to provide this div or top, left or right values. To properly merge the class name we provided through these props with the default class name of this div, we will use the package called Tailwind merge, because if we use any conflicting style or classes, Tailwind might not work as we intended. So to avoid that, let's first install Tailwind merge. So open your terminal and write down npm install Tailwind merge. Now let's come to this top of the page and import that Tailwind merge. And from this Tailwind merge, we want to import TW merge. Now I can use this TW merge over here, but first let me just remove this and let me just cut it and use it like this. And here I can say Tailwind merge, and here I can provide the default value like that. After that, comma, and the class name that I want to merge, like so, and save it. Now according to this size, I want to scale this div in different sizes. Okay, so let's create one object called scale. So const scale equals to, and when the size is small, I want to apply the Tailwind class scale 50. Okay, and now when the size is medium, I want the Tailwind class to be applied scale 75. Okay, and maybe when it is large size, I want scale to be 100. Let me add another size also here, extra large, and scale value will be 110. Okay, but you can see the problem here. We have only 3 size over here, but we have 4 size here. Okay, and this is not automatically added over here because we said this size is small, medium and large. And I will give you one tips of Typescript so that you do not have to update it yourself. Automatically it will be updated. To do that, you can say key of type of scale. Okay, now this size is always small, medium, large and extra large, and if you add any other sizes over here, this will automatically add it to this one. See, you can see over here. All right, so that helps a lot, so that you do not have to remember to change in 2 places, right? If you correct or change anything here, that will be also changed. Now I want this size to be optional, so let me make this optional, and here I want the default size to be equals to large. Okay, and I can use that over here. Now here I can say scale, and whatever size I provided, I can provide it like that, and if size is small, we will add this Tailwind class there, and if size is medium, this scale 75 is added. Okay, and if the size is large, this will added. If it's extra large, this will be added on here. Okay, so you get the idea. So let's save it. Now that I am almost done with this component, now I can use this component over here in this parallax component, but I want to use this floating images component multiple times using loop over here, right? So the next step will be to create a data for this floating image. Okay, and that includes this image path, caption, and class name and size, all that. Okay, so let's create that data first. So over here on the source folder, I want to create another folder called data, and within this data folder I want to create a file name image data.ts. Here we will create our data. Export const image data equals to an array of object. This object will have image path, that will be string type, caption, that will be also string type, class name, that will be also string type, and size, that will be either small, medium, large, or extra large. For now, let me give it a value of large. Okay, and now here we will add data as many as we like based on the number of the image we want, right? Another thing is this data type is same as this floating image prop type, right? So let me just export this type, and we will use this over here. So this image data type will be the array of this floating image prop type, something like this. Now I have to write and complete all the data, but if I were to show you all the recording of me typing out this data, it would be quite boring. So I will prepare all the data of recording and come back afterward. Okay, I am done adding all my data. Here it is. In total I have added like 7 data. But if you want more images in your project, just add more data over here, as simple as that. Here in our data we have image path, where I provided the image name that we have on our public folder right here. Okay, so whatever image name we provide here will be applied to this component image source. Okay, now here in the caption, just describe your image. Okay, and in the class name, just provide top and left or right position. Okay, and you don't have to copy whatever I have here exactly like this. You just provide some random value, that will be all right. The idea is only that we want the images to appear in the screen in different side and position. Okay, now finally you provide the size and give the different value to it. Okay, like small, medium, large, whatever, and on the basis of this size we will scale our component. Okay, now finally we can use this image data in our parallax component. So let's go and open our parallax.tsx file. Now we can import that image data over here. So let's say import image data, And now I can apply the map function to that image data over here. So image data dot map function, and here I can deconstruct the value that we will get from image data. So image path and caption, class name and size. Now I can return the component called floating images over here. Now I have to provide the props image path, and this image path will be equals to image path from our data. Similarly, caption equals to caption, and class name equals to class name, and finally size equals to size. All right, now we are using here map function, so we have to provide the key also, and the key should be unique. So here let me say image path, but sometime I might use the same image in the data 2 times and the image path might be same. So to avoid any error in the future, so let me just add here index and add here the index over here also, so that this key can always be unique. Okay, and finally let's save it and let's go to the browser to see what we have so far. So here it is. So if I scroll, you can see we have our images over here, and they have different position, different size, something like this. Okay, on this parallax component in this div container, I want to add few more classes. So first one is sticky and the next one is top 0. Now whenever we scroll, this div will stick at the top of the viewport and we will get the effect something like this. So right now this div is stick to the screen and other images feel like it is flying over this div container. Now we have reached to the fun part of our project, that is to add the scroll based parallax animation. We will use the framer motion to add that animation. So let's first install the framer motion. Open your terminal and write down npm install framer motion. While I am here in this terminal, I also like to install a package called Lenish. I hope that's how it pronounced. Okay, and this Lenish package makes our browser scrolling very smooth. Since we are creating the scroll based animation, smooth scrolling is very important for our project to ensure the animation look seamless and polished. So now let's close this terminal. Now I can import React Lenish from Lenish/React, and I will wrap all of this div container with that React Lenish, and here I will pass root. Now if I save it and check it to the browser, you can see this images and this scroll bar is scrolling smoothly, not jumping from one position to another. Now from framer motion, I want to import motion, use scroll and use transform. Now from this use scroll hook, we can get scroll Y progress. So let's get that over here. Now I can get that scroll Y progress like so. Right now we are getting the scroll Y progress value of whole page, but we need to get the scroll Y progress value of this div container. So we will use the useRef hook to get the reference of this div container. Okay, so here we will say const target ref equals to useRef, and we will pass null here. Now we need to import this useRef from React, and then we can use that over here as a reference equals to target ref. Okay, now save. Now on this use scroll hook, I can pass the object with target, and this target will be our target ref. Okay, and then we have to pass offset, and this offset will be array. The first value will be start, and the next value will be end. And what this means is when the start of this div container meet the start of our viewport over here at the top, then we will start tracking this scroll Y progress until the end of this div container meet the end of our viewport over here. Okay, the value of scroll Y progress will always be between 0 and 1, and according to our setup right now, the start of this div container is already at the start of this viewport. So right now here the scroll Y progress value is 0, and when we scroll until the end of this scroll bar, this div end will meet the end of this viewport, and here the value of scroll Y progress is 1. Okay, now I will start adding the animation to our project. First, I want to add the animation to this center content. Right now it is fixed at the center of the screen, but I want at first it to be hidden, and when I start scrolling, it should appear from the bottom and stay at the center position. So let's do it. Here in this parallax.tsx file, now we will use this use transform hook to convert this scroll Y progress value to the translate Y value. So here we will say const logo Y equals to use transform, and we will provide this scroll Y progress over here, and when the scroll Y progress value is between 0 to, let's say, 0.2 for now, the value will convert it to 70 dVH to 0 dVH. And why 70 dVH? Because our logo is at the center, so I want to push it below over here so we cannot see at the beginning, and when we reach to the scroll position 0.2, it will come to this original position. Okay, so let's save it. Now to use this, come over here on this div and make this div motion div, and make sure that this motion is added to your closing tag also. Okay, after that here add a style to it and provide Y, and the value of Y will be this logo Y, and save it. Now let's go to the Chrome browser to check it. So at the beginning we do not have this logo over here, but when I scroll in between this 0.2 scroll position, it will come over here and at the center and stay there. Here we have provided some hard-coded value which will be difficult to manage. So I want to convert this hard-coded value to the value that we can understand easily, right? So little bit earlier when we set up this project, I told you that this div is like 400 dvh of total height. Okay, so I'm getting 100 dvh from here and 300 dvh from here. Let's say this is our div container, which is 400 dvh of height. That means we can divide this div container in 4 equal sections like this. And we also know that if the scroll y progress value is 0, then this section is on the view. And if the scroll y progress value is 1, then this section is on the view. To reach to this section, we need to completely scroll this first section, this second section, and this third section. Then only this final section will be on the view. So this means we can say that in total we have 3 screen size of height that we can scroll. Now to reach to this section, from this section we have to scroll 1 section out of 3 scrollable section. Similarly, to reach to this section, we need to scroll 2 out of 3 scrollable section. So here, if we scroll 3 section out of this 3 section, that will be equals to 1, and the math seems to be right. We will be at this last section. So basically what this means is, if we scroll 1/3, that means scroll y progress is equal to 1/3, then we are at this section. And if scroll y progress value is 2/3, then we are at this section. Okay, and when the scroll y progress is this 3/3 equals to 1, then means we are at this final section. Okay, now with this information we can accurately provide the scroll position for our animation. So here I will create a variable screen that will be equals to 3. Now when I scroll like half of screen, then I want this value to change from 70 dvh to 0 dvh. Let's save it and see if it is still working. So here it is. So this is still working as we want. Now we know that for the scroll animation we need this motion value that is directly related to this scroll y progress, and we can use that value over here on the motion div on the style like so, right? So we will do the same to animate our floating image. Now here in this floating images prop type, we need to add another property y that will be motion value type of number. Now we need to import this motion value from Framer Motion, and over here we need to deconstruct our y from floating image props so that we can pass the y value as a props here. Okay, then we need to convert this main div of this component to the motion.div, and we need to import this motion from Framer Motion. Now on the style we can pass our y value over here for the animation. Now save it. Now we have an error to fix, so let's go to this parallax.tsx file. Here where we use this floating image component, we need a way to provide this y value. However, in our data we do not have this y value, and we also cannot provide y value directly to our data because this y value should be transformed from this scroll y progress value so that our scroll based animation can work. However, we can add this array of output range value to our data, then we will use this use transform hook to get our y value. So let's open this image data file and do it. Now this image data cannot be this floating image prop type because our data don't have this y property. So we need to create a new type for our data. So let's say type image data equals to, now in our data we want to add a output range. So let's say range, and this range will be type of array number and number. Now here we want to extend this floating image prop type but excluding this y property. So to do that we can say and omit from this floating image prop type, and we want to omit this y property. Okay, now we can replace this floating image prop type with this image data type. Now in our data we can add range and provide our data over here. Now we have to provide the range in all of our data over here, and which will take little bit time. So let me do that off recording and come back. Now I am done with adding these range values to our data. You just provide different range values to each data so that we can see the element scrolling in different speed while we scroll the page. At first, you do not worry much about providing here the right values. Just add some random values here, and later if you find your element is moving too fast or too slow than you want, then only you come back here to adjust this value to your likings. Okay, now let's go to this parallax.tsx file. Now here we need to create a motion value for each of our data. So let's say const image y equals to image data, and we will use the map function on it, and we will get the range from our data, and we will return this use transform hook. Now we'll pass this scroll y progress over here. The input data will be 0 to 1, and the output range will be range. Now we will get this image y as an array of motion value. Okay, now we can use that over here on this floating image component. So here we can say y equals to, we can pass this image y and here index number. Now let's save it and let's check this on our browser. Now the moment of truth. Let's scroll and see if everything is working properly or not. First, this center logo appears in the screen and stay at the center of screen. Other images also appears in the screen, and it looks like all of these images has different scrolling speed. That gives the parallax effect to our animation. Looks like everything is working just fine. I just have two issues here. The first is I want this center logo element to move upward at the end of our animation. So we need to do this. The second is, if you notice, we gave all these image component different scale Tailwind classes. But right now every images are same size. The reason for that is we use the framer motion div to this component. And when we use the framer motion take control of all transform properties. So the classes we provided to this component has no effect on it. So we need to fix this issue also. So let's go back to the VS Code and do it. Now to move that central logo at the end of our animation, come to this parallax.tsx file, and on this input range of logo Y, you can add 2.5 divided by screen and 3 divided by screen. Now on the output range, you can add 0 dvh and negative 70 dvh. Now basically what we are saying here is, when the scroll Y progress value is between this range, we want the output value to be in between 0 dvh to negative 70 dvh. Now while I am here, I also want to add a class name to this div container. Okay, so class name overflow clip. This is just to prevent any child moving out of the container and causing issues. Okay, now let's open our browser and see if it is working or not. Now here at the end of our animation, this center logo is moving upward, so this is working. Now let's fix the scaling problem of this component. Here in this floating image component, we know that this scale class name has no effect on this container because of framer motion. So we want to remove this from the class name and add the scale property from style props. So here we can say scale and the value will be scale size. Okay, now from this scale object over here, we are providing actually Tailwind class name, right? Now we have to change it to 0.50, that is scale values. Okay, so over here I will say 0.75. okay, and for large we will just say 1. Now over here we will say 1.1. Now let's save it and let's go to the browser to check it. Now let's check it. So when I scroll, you can see the images are now in different sizes, right? And we got the parallax effect also as we want. Okay. This means our animation is complete, our project is done. Time to say goodbye. That's all for today. See you next time.